It would appear people do not understand what a community is or what makes a community. At best we assume it to be juxtaposed individuals, usually families, but as the density lessens community becomes isolated households. As the volume of homes increases, the community is considered a city and the metropolitan area becomes subdivided into neighborhoods. But the difference between a housing development and community is not just the presence of people in the houses. In this sense, the idea of community crosses over into what Christians think of as a church. Indeed, we could go so far as to say until the people in an area become a church, they are not fulfilling the conditions of what it means to be a community. At the same time, it is fair to say that until the church takes on the form of a community, it has not attained to the true nature of the church. We know the church is more than just buildings and people, but we are less sure of what it is, in the positive sense. This tells us that we have not identified the key factor in either a community or church. We know one is also the other, but we do not know what makes the one the other. The strange fact is that what we say is more of a correlate, than a central factor, is the two things we know that exist in a church and in a community. There are always people and buildings involved. But no one will look at a group of people or a collection of buildings and say they are a church or community. Something is missing and we know it, even if we cannot put our finger on it. When people form an intentional community, they generally look for land and a building or buildings, and then they seek more people. They will create various rules, and mission statements and lists of priorities or values. But the existence of people and buildings do not make a community, and all of the covenants, policy statements and statement of principles does not necessarily lead to what we all envisage community to be. We can even look at "Make America Great Again" as a slogan hearkening back to a time when community was more real. If there was a golden age of America, it would be an age when communities were strong and reflected what we imagine when we think of community. His enemies always mocked the slogan suggesting America was never great, meaning it always had problems. They missed the point. A great America does not mean a perfect America or a place where every person had their feelings assuaged or wants validated. Indeed, a great nation must prioritize community over alien agitators and the profane intents of those who are no community-minded. The problem we have always faced, and why we have not found a way to reform or transform our places of residences into vibrant communities, is that we always start from the same mess that we had when we started. That is, we largely assume we need to fix the system, rather than see it as the problem we need to eliminate. The "Make America Great Again" movement was different in this respect. It assumed the present system was broken and we needed to go back to an earlier time when different priorities and values were being expressed. That this time led to the present debacle is not appreciated by this movement, but at least it understands one cannot take the present and evolve it out of its problems. It is the problem. To put this another way, human beings are the product of history. The history we have gone through led us to this place. We want things to be better. We want things to change, but we keep linking our reforms to a time in history that led us to this time and place. Perhaps this is why many critics mock the MAGA movement as an idealistic and unrealistic fantasy. It envisions turning the clock back. Not only can this not be done, but it also simply rewinds the same old clock that brought us to this present moment. No matter what Trump and his movement does, our memory of these decades will never be erased, and no matter how close he comes to recreating an earlier period, the intervening years will still be part of American history. That is, even if the country could become the 1060s again, it would be a 1960s that remembers and experienced all the years leading up to 2025, and so things will never be the same as they were. This ought to give us a better insight into the problem and the solution. The problem is not the place we are at, the problem is the process that got us here. The problem is the very system that causes us to reject where we are now at. The solution is not to try and turn the clock back. The solution is to disrupt the system that took us out of Eden and into the present, because it is all part of the same trend. This is where it gets complicated, because people look at history as if it is natural. They look at human society and human community, as if it was a forest, as if there is nothing to discover that will not be contained within the realm of natural law. We do not look at Eden as if it has something to tell us about what we are experiencing in the present. We do not even think that what happened yesterday can be traced back to the events of Eden. Many people do believe there is evil in the world, but they anthropomorphize it. In their understanding, the devil is a kind of imp that runs around creating mischief and at times, disaster. However, evil is a disconnected series of events that has more in common with the actions of a bad child than with a strategy or even algorithm. The devil is a being, but he is not supernatural in the way God is supernatural. What God thinks is what is. What God thinks exists. There is no distinction between what is in the mind of God and what is in reality. However, the devil is nowhere near this level of sublime power. The devil is evil, but he could not, even with all of his demons, force a negative trajectory on the world. It is better to think of history as a landslide. A sudden noise or a hurtling rock cannot take out a village, nor could a snowflake. But a noise can set off a movement of snow, and this can result in incremental shifts that ultimately lead to an avalanche that sweeps away a village. Evil does not sweep villages away, but it instills things in the hearts of men that spread and grow progressively poisonous until it destroys entire nations. The devil gets the ball rolling, but the spread of evil is performed by our species. It is us who destroy communities. To understand the destruction of community, we need to understand what is being destroyed by evil. A community is an economy. A community is not created by a transaction, but the total economy is not a community either. The community is a local market. It is the density of transactions that make a place into a community. This is why engagement is so important. But engagement happens on many different levels. A community can get together annually to celebrate some event or weekly to engage in sports. The community might come together to address a tragedy or celebrate a milestone. There may be other things which happen more often, and which require a deeper commitment, such as a charity event or ministry. However, nothing brings a community together more than engaging in business. A community without businesses will never feel like a community. However, as some places have recently discovered, a community that views its businesses as charities, will lose their businesses and the centering role they play in the formation of community. A community, as said, is an economy, and an economy, to be functional, must be to some degree, a closed system. There needs to be equality or stability. Income and expenses must balance. An economy that has too many externalities will deteriorate over time. This can be as serious as a business being constantly robbed. It will go out of business. So, there must be trust based on the lack of parasitic activity. If a community is an economy, then an economy is a community with low levels of parasitic activity. Free riding and business activity are not compatible. Indeed, if we were serious about justice and creating community, free riding would become an offense, which would make all criminal activity illegal, without spelling out the specific offense. The police would be authorized to stop and investigate any suspected freeloader to ensure he or she is gainfully employed. If the investigation is negative regarding freeloading, the stop and search would be recorded so a record of the investigation would remain available to the justice system to ensure no patterns of unfair targeting occurred. A community is literally a peace initiative. Any citizen not working for peace is committing an infraction. All the justice system is required to do is to demonstrate a person's behavior is detrimental to the peace of the public to find them guilty of an infraction. The severity of the crime is equal to the level of the peace that is infringed. Disturbance of the community peace is never permitted. An individual or group can bring charges. The court determines if the peace of the community has been disturbed and to what degree. Without peace, there is no community. The image of tranquil groups going about their business in peace and harmony may seem trite and even cringy, but there is some truth to the imagery. The dissociated group is not peaceful. Living with strangers does not produce the highest level of peace. A community is a peace initiative in that those in a community ought to be seeking ways to create engagement, that is economic activity. Peace perfects us, it perfects our community. This is why the church is an agent of peace. Through peace we create a community that through its civilization and economic progress, cancels or fulfills our needs. A community, therefore, is a place of peace and a correlate of the church. Its identity is associated with equality, and equality is a growing perfection associated with the satisfaction of our needs, through the advancement of civilization. Which is another way of saying, that if the community is not civilized or civilizing, it is not peaceful nor a place where needs are met.